What's up, sports fans? This is the Lucas Ross Sports Channel, and it's time to give you another game preview / game prediction for the 2023 college football season. And our next game preview / game prediction will be Week 4's matchup between the Ohio State Buckeyes and the Notre Dame Fighting Irish. Big-time non-conference game coming up here this weekend for the week number 4 of the college football season, as we are about close to halfway of the college football season already. We got some big-time games coming up this weekend. You know, some conference games are starting up this weekend for some teams as well, but this is a big-time game. Ohio State versus Notre Dame. This is where College Game Day will go as well this weekend. So we're kind of expecting a big-time game. You got two great quarterbacks going at it in this game, two top 10 teams. And you look at last year's game, both of these teams met in the regular season last year in the first game of the regular season in 2022. Ohio State took home the victory by 11 points, 21-10. There's a lot of storylines going into this game. Ohio State, we're going to find out if their offense is good enough against good competition. And then for Notre Dame, we're going to find out if they are a serious playoff contender as they will go up against this Ohio State team. But we're going to get right into it here. We're going to give you a game preview on this one. We're going to give you pretty much, the stats for both of these teams in the first few games of the season, the game summary for this game, and also what time the game will be and who the favorite going into this game is. And also we're going to give you pretty much the keys to the game here for both of these teams to win this game. And then we're going to give you pretty much the prediction of how this game will go down. So let's get right into it here with our game preview / game prediction for Ohio State versus Notre Dame. And we'll start with the stat comparison. Looking at Ohio State stats first, they're coming into this game with a record of 3-0. Those first couple games for Ohio State were pretty tough ones. You had against Indiana in the first game, only winning it by 20 points, 23-3. Then they defeated Youngstown State a couple weeks ago, 35-7. And then last week, last night, they defeated Western Kentucky like 63-7. So this defense, again, for Ohio State has been pretty good. In the first three games, the offense got off to a slow start in the first couple games, but it seems like they found their offense in the game against Western Kentucky. They're averaging about 40.3 points per game now, and you look at the total yards per game, 474.7 yards per total yards this year, and you could just see how explosive this Ohio State offense is. Passing yards getting better for them, 318 yards of passing. Kyle McCord seems like he's gotten better as a quarterback as of late. Rushing yards. Ohio State's not really a explosive running attack. They're not really good on the ground, but I think this Ohio State team needs their running backs to be really strong heading into this game against Notre Dame this weekend. They're averaging about 156.7 yards per carry, or actually on the ground this year in yards per game. Offensively in the rankings, it's not really good for Ohio State at 24th in the country. We're not used to seeing Ohio State, being in the 20th, in the top 25. Like, they're not in the 20s very much. We're kind of expecting them to be in the top 10, maybe a top 5 as well. But their defense has been really solid, 3rd in the country so far this year. Again, that defense has just given up about 7 points so far this season. So that's been the really good thing about this Ohio State defense. Notre Dame, they're coming into this game with a record of 4-0. They defeated Navy in week number 0, Tennessee State in week number 1, week number 2. I think week number 2 they defeated NC State. They played a week 0 game, and then week number 3 last week, last night played Central Michigan. You look at the points per game, 42 points per game. This Notre Dame offense, very explosive at scoring the football. Look at the total yards per game, 508.8 yards per total yards per game this year. Again, this Notre Dame offense has been just very explosive, and it's because of this guy, Sam Hartman, 304.3 yards per passing. What a season he's had this year, but not more than Kyle McCord, but Notre Dame hasn't really played anybody that tough. Maybe those numbers could go down for Sam Hartman, but we're kind of expecting him to play really good in this game. Rushing yards is a really good Notre Dame running team, 204.5 yards on the ground. Their running game is going to have to be really strong. They're going to have to run against this defensive line for Ohio State, but I think it's going to be pretty much all about the passing for Notre Dame. Offensively in the rankings, 16th in the country. Again, that Notre Dame offense is so much better than it was last year. And then defensively, they are 4th in the country. So stat comparisons between these two teams, both undefeated records, and obviously definitely similar points per games. Offensive yards, both of these teams are pretty even on offense. And then defensively, they're both pretty even as well. So we're kind of expecting, both defenses to be really good in this game. But now we're going to get into the game summary. Those are the stat comparisons here between Ohio State and Notre Dame. Let's go to the game summary now. Ohio State and Notre Dame, this game is going to be a night game at 7:30 p.m. Eastern Time this Saturday on NBC because it is at Notre Dame, Indiana. And usually the Irish's games are pretty much, on NBC, so I could see why it is an NBC game and not an ESPN-type game. Ohio State favored by a field goal as of right now. The over and under is at 54. So they're kind of predicting this game to be a low-scoring type game, like kind of similar to last year. Like I said, last year's game was 21-10. Ohio State won in Columbus, and everything, or I should say Columbia and everything. So Ohio State, fourth-ranked team in the country in this game. Obviously, they moved up in the AP poll to the top 5, which is very surprising. They moved Texas and Florida State down just because of those games that they had over the weekend. I don't think that was I don't think that was really a good idea for Ohio State to move up to number 4. They haven't really played anybody that tough yet, but, except they're going to be playing Notre Dame this weekend. This will be their toughest game so far. Notre Dame at number 9. I mean, they've not played really anybody that tough either. They had a road game against NC State, which NC State was not even ranked. I mean, they did win that game pretty easily, so... both Notre Dame and Ohio State, though, are both ranked in the top 10. And again, this game's at 7:30 Eastern Time on NBC. And again, Ohio State favored by 3 points, which is very surprising to me. Notre Dame is an underdog going into this game. I mean, I think we knew going into this game they would be an underdog. But Notre Dame, I think, has looked much more better on offense than Ohio State in the first 4 games of the season. And Ohio State, their offense still has some work to do, but again, we're going to find out how good this offense is going to be for Ohio State based off of what we saw against Western Kentucky from yesterday. So, again, this game's at 7:30 Eastern Time, a night game on NBC, and the over and under at 54. Let's now go into the keys to the game here for both of these teams. For Ohio State, number 1 key is wide receivers have to get open. The secondary, I don't think is good for Notre Dame, but, offensively for Ohio State, their wide receivers have to get open. And I think Marvin Harrison's going to have a big-time game in this one. He's going to have to be the man for, Kyle McCord at wide receiver. I mean, Marvin Harrison's definitely one of the top wide receivers in the country and definitely in the Big Ten. So, again, the wide receivers have to be a big factor for Ohio State. They also have to pressure Sam Hartman. The defensive line's going to have to really get pressure on Sam Hartman, make him make some bad throws, and obviously kind of like force him some turnovers and everything and make him, just throw bad throws down the field. And then obviously they have to make explosive plays on the offense and defensive side of the football. I think defensively they're going to be really explosive, but offensively it's kind of hard to say that for right now. But again, Ohio State has to make explosive plays. That's what they're all about. Ohio State has to be explosive on offense. They have to also be explosive on defense. They've been pretty explosive on defense in the first 3 games, but offensively, I know they just had a great game against Western Kentucky, but I want to see more from this Ohio State offense. I know they were much better in that game, against, Western Kentucky. For Notre Dame, they have to score points in this game. They also have to pressure Kyle McCord, and they also have to force turnovers because this is a really good Ohio State offense. And you hardly don't really see Ohio State, turn the ball over on offense very much. But defensively, Ohio State can force turnovers as well. Notre Dame, though, they have to get pressure on Kyle McCord, make him uncomfortable in his first, or second road game of the season. But this will definitely be tougher than the Indiana game. They have to score points, obviously. Score points is the key for Notre Dame. And they've obviously have been doing that in the first 4 games of the season. They have scored 40-plus points in their games. They scored like 40-plus in that Navy game. And that game was not a fluke. Notre Dame knew they were going to be really good on offense. And this Notre Dame offense seems to be getting better and better each and every single day. And again, we're going to find out if Notre Dame has a great offense in this one against the defense of Ohio State. But they have to force turnovers. That's the main key. They got to really pressure Kyle McCord, probably sack him a lot in this game, and probably get some big-time stops on third downs. But those are the keys to the game here for both of these teams. For Ohio State, wide receivers have to get open, pressure Sam Hartman, make him very uncomfortable in the pocket, make explosive plays. And then for Notre Dame, they have to score points, pressure Kyle McCord, and force turnovers. So those are the keys to the game here for both of these teams to win the game for both of them this weekend. Let's now get into the prediction for both of these teams. So again, Ohio State and Notre Dame, biggest game of the weekend. College game day is going to be down there for this game. And obviously, looking back to last year's matchup, Ohio State won by 11. It was a defensive battle. I think it's going to be kind of similar to that. I think this is how the game's going to go down. First half, it's definitely a defensive battle, but second half, both offenses seem to get it going. But, I mean, Ohio State, in the preseason, I did pick Notre Dame to win this game. I mean, based off of what we've seen so far from Notre Dame, their offense has been very explosive. For Ohio State in the first couple games, slow start on offense, and then last night against Western Kentucky, they definitely did better, but I just have not seen much from Ohio State yet in order for me to call them a dangerous offense in the country. I think Notre Dame is a better offense than Ohio State, and I think they're going to kind of prove that to me this weekend. I'm still going to stick with my preseason pick. It's a low-scoring game, but I'm going to pick Notre Dame to win this one 24-21. So, again, the game's kind of similar to last year. More points are scored, but not really an explosive game. Like, not both offenses are not very explosive in this game. I think it's going to be all defenses in this game. First half, it will be defense, and then second half, both offenses seem to get it going. But I think a field goal or maybe like a touchdown late really changes the game here. And obviously, I think a turnover probably changes the game as well. So I got Notre Dame. I'm going to stick with my preseason pick, and I'm going to predict that Notre Dame wins this one. And after this win, I think for Notre Dame, they are a playoff contender. But again, Ohio State, if they win this game, that's going to pretty much ruin Notre Dame's chances of making a playoff. I don't really see Notre Dame winning out for the rest of the year, but it's very possible. But again, my final score prediction is 24-21. Notre Dame wins this one by a field goal, maybe a game-winning field goal, or maybe late touchdown in the game, or a turnover changes the game. But this is my game preview / game prediction for Ohio State and Notre Dame. Again, the game's this upcoming weekend, the biggest game of week number 4. I know we got some big-time games coming up like Clemson and, Florida State. I'll do a game preview and prediction on that game on Tuesday, so stay tuned for that video. But that's my prediction and game preview for this Notre Dame versus Ohio State game. Coming up this weekend on Saturday, give me your thoughts down in the comments below who you think wins this game and what's your final score prediction as well. And stay tuned here for more sports content videos on my Lucas Ross Sports channel.